Okay, I think we are now live, and I want to welcome everybody that's logged on via YouTube from your home, and welcome to all the board members here tonight in the Harmon Lodge for the October 28th regular board meeting of the Candlewood Lake Association, being virtually streamed live via YouTube. We'll start the meeting with a call to order and roll call. I am here, Kevin McCrae, Lori Parrish, Charlie Brown, Jonathan Klug, Chris Johnson, Ned Lust, Daryl Young, Jim Reeder, Doug Potts. Okay, thank you. If we could just take a moment for individual silent prayer, please. Thank you. Okay, first order of business is approval of minutes of the September 28th, 2020 regular board meeting as presented. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Thank you, Ned. And a second? That's Charlie? Thank you, Charlie. With hearing no additions or corrections, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, first up is the President's report. I've just got a couple things to go through tonight. First of all, just for everyone's calendars, we do not have a board meeting in November, just to update everybody. Our next meeting is actually December the 7th. So that's the first Monday in December, which is kind of the way we've been doing it for several years. So no board meeting in November, and there's actually no January meeting either. And that next meeting after that will be the first Monday in February. We'll confirm all this going forward, but just wanted to get it out there that our next meeting after tonight is December the 7th, first Monday in December. We are looking into, at the request of actually more than a couple of members, we're looking into Zoom or other technology to consider for committee meetings. And the reason for that, of course, is if we get a spike or any furtherance of this COVID outbreak, it's something we want to be ready for if that's necessary. So I'm going to ask Doug to look into the right subscription, and whether it's Zoom or Microsoft product or what have you, and consider what might be best for from a committee perspective to use, and just trying to protect those members if things should get worse as a backup plan. Third item I have is just budget in focus in November, and we have a initial budget ready. The staff's been working hard on that, along with the committees and all the management folks with the association. So we have an initial budget, and I believe that budget's on its way to the Finance Committee if it's not there already. We have a goal of having that budget come to the board meeting on that December the 7th for approval. That's the goal. And hopefully we'll be able to do that. So that means a lot of work has to go on in November to make that happen. So Charlie's going to be busy with the Finance Committee and working with Leslie and the staff to get that budget from an initial budget to a final budget and get it through approval at the Finance Committee to be presented at the December meeting to the board. So that's the goal. The overarching goals with the budget, of course, we've talked about before, but we want to continue to move towards that break-even result on operating, and we've been making progress on that each year. Each year, we move closer towards break-even, even after depreciation. Not there yet. And then the second overarching goal is to achieve that 5-year reserving target, and that's to be at the 30% of fully funded for our reserves, and that target year is fiscal 23-24. So that's the 5th year from when this was initiated a couple of years ago. So that's the big stuff going on with the budget. So a lot of work has to go on in November, and my thanks up front for the Finance Committee, because they're going to meet at least once, and who knows, maybe twice, Charlie, right? You never know. So last thing I want to mention is just, again, want to thank all the standing and ad hoc committees. That there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and with COVID and everything, a lot of times they're working by themselves in the Harmon Lodge. But I can't think of a committee that's not kind of chock full right now with what they're working on. In some cases, a lot of big things, but in every case, a lot of things in general. So my thanks to all the members that are out there that take part in our committees. It's a extremely important part of our governance. That's where the real heavy lifting gets done, and you'll see that tonight with a lot of motions actually coming out of bylaws. Bylaws must have been working overtime, Lori, in the past month. But again, my thanks to all the people that contribute to our standing and ad hoc committees. It's great work, and we all really appreciate what you do. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Doug for the general manager report.
Thank you, Greg. Just a couple of things that I want to update everyone on in regards to some of the most important things happening here at Candlewood. The water sewer treatment plant, the filter process is going to be done or started here at the end of December probably. Moving forward with that, we're working with Steve Kemp from the MAC Corporation to give us a final estimate on that cost. It's a project that definitely is very important. We have one of the most outstanding water treatment plants in the area and take a lot of pride in that. Along the same lines, we're going to look at the dam safety inspection. That will be this Thursday. Typically, that's on a 5-year cycle. They've upped that due to various reasons with ODNR that we're going to have that lady here, Tina Griffin from the ODNR on this Thursday. The ECC position, thanks to Mr. Adkins and Ron Carr, we've been going through that process of hiring a new person in that position that hopefully will have something nailed down here in the next week or two. Security updates, Joe will have some follow-up on that, but security now is up to a level in which it's comfortable now, getting 3 additional people in that position. Joe has been doing an outstanding job the last couple of weeks, just getting his feet wet and looking at exactly what needs to be done in the area of security. And he will have a follow-up in the Chronicle this month on various articles dealing with speeding and the things that we're going to do to help better prepare the individuals of the community. The packages for UPS and so forth, the United States Postal Services, will be going back to Mount Gilead. I appreciate the support of the board on that, and liability issues. Talking with the postmaster there at Mount Gilead, it's something that we're just going to send that back to Mount Gilead. Another thing there is that we have to realize that in this time of COVID and so forth, we just need random acts of kindness. And I think in my position, it'll be 100 days here, November 11th actually. And some of the things that I've taken pride in and wanted to build relationships was based on very simple facts that I've learned from my years in education and dealing with people that I've shared with the office staff and the support staff over the last 100 days or so. And just if you're thankful, show it. If you've done something wrong, fess up. If you're confused, ask questions. Leslie knows I do that on a daily basis. If you make a mistake, apologize. If you see someone that needs help, help them. And if you see something wrong, take a stance. And I think a lot of times that deals with the random acts of kindness and just trying to work as a team. I know Nate Wilson, our Director of Operation, talks about working as a team. And I truly believe that we're starting that, and we're realizing that we can accomplish more by working together. And I applaud those individuals for doing that. Technology update, I would like to thank Greg Atkins and Bob Miracle and Randall Combs. We met last Friday with Armstrong. Armstrong is going to be a very significant player in the whole process of getting the fiber optics to the gates so we can have some more secure images and so forth with the individuals that are breaking our gates and doing things that we're not supposed to be doing. Our cameras are in very good shape, but we just need to have a better resolution. That is going to come from the fiber optics. And signs and dock numbers, the signs are being put up throughout Candlewood again, the street signs, stop signs, speed limit signs, and dock numbers that maintenance will be working on in the spring. I was bringing up to Mr. Atkins that someone had asked me the question, is Candlewood salvageable? And I had to just take a step back and realize what they were trying to say about that. And they had indicated that they had lived in the community for a year and a half, and they were giving mixed messages on what was happening as far as security and some other issues. But they said the progress that we've made in the last 70 or 80 days, they've taken a new approach to Candlewood being the place to be in Central Ohio. Also, we're finalizing some activities and understanding the procedures for the meter reading for the water department and so forth. And it's something that we're working with Roger Schoenberger and trying to improve that process. Leslie and the girls in the office have done a great job in verifying those costs, and we are starting to eliminate some of those problems, but it's still something that if you have concerns, please don't hesitate to give us a call in the office, and we'll sit down with you and do an audit and go in as much details as TOPS will allow us to do.
Let me jump in here a second, because I'm getting some texts that from one member, and they said that 6 people called them that they're not able to get on. So I just sent a text back to them based upon what you said. They can search, because we do have a number of people on already, but I told them to search YouTube for Candlewood, and the page should come up. Is that right?
If you search Candlewood Lake.
Candlewood Lake.
Greg.
It should come up. It should be one of the first things.
Yeah, I'm looking. The link that was sent out it didn't take it to the right site. So if they just search Candlewood Lake Association on YouTube, it should pop right up. Go to YouTube, search Candlewood Lake Association, and it'll pop right up.
So actually here is the financial report, not the finance committee, even though it rolls back and forth, Charlie. So I'll let you take it away on whichever or both you're going to do.
Well, as we previously agreed, we are moving to an in-depth quarterly focus on our financial reports with just a few line items in between. October is the end of our third quarter here, so next month is the month that we'll be giving the quarterly recap on the finances. But I want to reassure you that we remain in good shape, and by that I just want to clarify, because some people have said, well, what does good shape mean? What is that all about? And when you consider the devastation that so many businesses have experienced with COVID, I just want everyone here to understand that that even though our revenues are down, our expenses have been tightly controlled, and we are remaining in good balance compared to the budget. Good balance compared to the budget. So that is exciting and good work by everybody. Our capital and reserve accounts continue to be reviewed and will be finalized for the new budget that will be shared at the December 7th meeting. And that's really all I have to say for the financial report. But for the financial committee, we have an ad hoc committee that's working on clarification of fund definitions. We've had a certain amount of miscoding for the computer input because there's confusion in terms of the language that's been used to define the funds. So that's being cleared up. So hopefully with our new fiscal year starting with February 1st, that will be taken care of. We definitely are on target for that December 7th budget meeting, presenting the budget. As you can see up there, the next meeting is November 30th here at the Lodge. But also I wanted to share one thing that Meg Hukel brought to the Financial Committee. She had brought in a report done by Northmore Schools showing a treasurer's column that really was quite informative. And it just addressed a particular concern that someone had presented and several paragraphs explaining that issue, and then included some charts that took some different approaches to sharing the financial situation. So starting with the fiscal year, I will be debuting this column and will also include pie charts and other ways to demonstrate the finances, which will hopefully communicate more clearly to a lot wider group of people. So, thanks.
Thank you, Charlie. Any questions from our group here? Okay. Next up is bylaws. Lori?
As you can see by the agenda, we have quite a few motions regarding the tenant-renter agreements and also a couple motions regarding our officers on the board. Our next meeting will be the second Wednesday of November at 6:30. It's on the 11th. And we've been a very busy committee and we'll continue.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. Environmental Control Committee, Ron?
Good. Okay. As you know, we have reported the last couple of months that we've done a pretty extensive investigation of how we handle permitting of trees and that kind of thing. And as a
Can you talk into the mic a little more for the people? Yeah, kind of.
Thank you. We've done an investigation of how permitting of trees in particular. As a consequence of that, we have changed the permit form to require a GIS map of property that people are going to be removing trees on. There's been some feedback that people don't know how to access that GIS, so all they have to do is in their browser search field is enter auditor.co.moro.oh.us, and that will take you right to the auditor's web page. And in the middle of the web page, there's a highlighted field called GIS maps. And if you click on that, that will bring up the GIS map, and you just zoom in on Candlewood and just keep zooming in until the individual lots are highlighted, and then you pick your lot, and it takes you right down to it. You just print that off and attach that to the permit, and that gives us an exact picture of the lot and the property lines, and it even has an indication of where the trees are. It makes our job much, much easier. It gives us a lot more confidence that what we are approving is in fact what is going to happen, and it will make the process much, much smoother. For those folks who don't have a computer or have difficulty, the folks in the office have indicated they would be more than happy to walk you through it. And there are some copies of the GIS map also available, I am told. For those people who have been using it, we thank you. It makes the whole process go much, much quicker, and you can get your permit back much, much quicker. In terms of business for the committee, last month we had one variance request for a setback violation that was granted, and one variance request to use prohibited material on a roof over, and that was denied. However, we've been getting a lot of requests for metal siding, and so we decided that we'd take a look at what metal siding is available on the market, what properties it has, and if it is a good material that we can control, then we would be willing to make a recommendation to the board. But that's an ongoing process. We also made some budget recommendations for one being a full-time inspector, compliance person, and expenses related to videoing permit instructions to help people get through the process of submitting their permits. Next meeting is November 3rd, 6:30 at the bottom floor of the Harmon Lodge.
Thank you, Ron. Any questions for Ron? Okay, thank you again, Ron. Lake and siltation, Gary Anderson.
Okay, I'm going to provide an update for the sediment pond project at the one-lane bridge. What we've accomplished, we have the trees removed that necessary. There may be one or two more. We won't know that till the actual pond gets started. And the sediment has been dug out from behind the check dam. And I think if anybody has gone by during the rains, you can see what a difference that made. It's now flowing through the check dam the way it's supposed to instead of over top. So that has made a big difference. What still needs to be done, we still need that road necessary to actually build the pond and to use that road in the future for the maintenance of that area. We have two culverts that we need there in order to build that road. That comes from two of the two other areas that feed in that area, two ravines. And as of now, we're planning one sediment pond, which is about 70 yards back from the check dam. But as we proceed there has been some discussions of a smaller one off to the side that may help too, but we won't know that until we get started. I asked in our last meeting how much the budget was for $20,000 for this project, and at the last meeting we were informed that we've used $4,000 to $5,000, and that everybody involved, that's actually Nate and Steve, thinks that we will be able to come in budget to finish that project, and their plans are to complete it yet this year in November and December, so that there's no carryover funds or no new requested funds for that area to be completed. The next thing is the dock at the beach and the kayak launches. The dock has been completed. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to go down and see. It's a T-shaped dock there. It's very nice. That way, two boats can park there. It's in between the beach and the pavilion there. So whoever did that did a very good job. So I appreciate that, and Candlewood should appreciate that. The kayak launches, we are supposed to have them ordered this year so that we can use the budgeted 2020 budget to get them, but they will not be installed until next season. but we'll get all the kayak launches and all the materials and that we need to actually do the actual installation of that project. The next thing we talked about at our meeting was the riprap, and in 2020 we have not done any riprap on Candlewood owned properties there, and we had talked about carrying this amount forward to the next budget, but it was decided that we would use our 2020 budgeted amount to purchase the stone this year, and then it'll be installed by our maintenance staff in 2021. That way we have the budgeted money used in the year it was budgeted for that. Other lake maintenance, we had the $14,000 budget for 2020, and nothing had been used, but I know we're running out of the year, but we're actually going to look and check with Nate and maintenance to see if any part of that money could be used in maybe getting a head start on any of our next projects, which would be at the North Dock, where the water goes into the North Dock, or at the South Park, which we think is the next two most troublesome areas and feed into the lake. So possible projects for 2021, we need to prioritize and look at, most of the people there at the committee thought that helping alleviate the silt that comes in at the North Dock and the South Park would be maybe a priority for next year. We did ask the members to submit any other ideas for our discussion at our next meeting for that. Also at our meeting, I know the membership and the residents are always interested in dredging, and the committee brought up that we would like some way to have some monthly report or something done on where the dredging is happening, how much is being used, maybe how many hours was being done, and that kind of stuff. I know we said that they're working at Area 5. Well, I don't know what Area 5 means, so I'm sure I'm not alone, that maybe we need a better definition of what those areas are. And so their plan is to finish Area 5 this year, and to start with around Turtle Island. I think that's the official name, Turtle Island, but everybody calls it Goat Island now, for the beginning of next year for the dredging project. The committee also asked, and we may have been misunderstood, about how often that the lake water is tested itself, and whether that could be sent out to the membership or published as to where it was and the results of the lake itself being tested. And I guess I didn't know, I maybe found out later that the health department gets involved in reading the responses. So I thought it was all just maintenance people that did it. So, but I'm sure that we test areas other than just the beach area, which happens every once in a while be closed because of bacteria or something. The last thing that we had in our meeting was a report that we have a beaver in the lake, which does a lot of damage. So I don't know, we was going to inform Doug. I don't know if he might got in touch with you, Doug, or not, to find somebody to handle the beaver. It was around the larger island at the beach area where it has been spotted for that. And our next meeting is November 10th at 6:30 here at Harmon Lodge. Any questions?
Just a comment.
Okay.
Thanks for your report, Gary. But I think that one-lane bridge project is a really important one, and because it's been on the list for I don't know how many years, Jonathan. Probably.
Yeah.
3.
I've been on the committee 3 years, and it's been on the list
Okay.
since
I was going to say.
So.
You're going to say 3 or 4, and it's already noticeable, and it's only 1/10 done or 2/10 done. So just a message to Doug and maintenance. I know there's a lot of stuff going on, but that's a really important one for us to lock up in November, December, because as you heard from Gary, we've got a couple other prime areas on the docket for next year regarding silt inflow. And we wrap this one up. I think people are really going to notice. It's going to be a big deal. So.
And we
thanks
appreciate
for that.
Nate and the maintenance people, the work they've done so far.
Yep.
Steve.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
All right, next up is long-range planning, and I'm going to sit in for John McFarland. He's battling a little head cold, and he thought it would be wise to stay at home tonight, which was probably good. But anyway, his quick update really was, okay, other than the next meeting, November 9th. Can you back up? Yeah, next meeting is November 9th at 6:30 at the Harmon Lodge, and his main update, one of the bigger things they're working on is the rustic campground issue, which has been closed, and what the committee's looking at is sort of the economics of it, the business case for it or against it, what have you, and they're still trying to lock down some numbers that surround what kind of investment it would take to bring it back up to speed, and some other financials that they're looking at just to lock those down before that would come to the board. So he wanted me to update you on that. And that's about it for long range. The next meeting is as described. Next up would be security. And Lori, do you have anything on security?
Our next meeting is the third Thursday, November 19th, and it's at 6:30 rather than 7. And you see up there it says in the Chronicle there's going to be articles on the greenhouse signs. This was a policy the board put into effect in July of 2005 to have people have the greenhouse signs in front, and those owning lakefront properties having them on their dock or their someplace visible. And this really is a help to all the emergency units to be able to find your homes, and also a help to FedEx and UPS when they're out there trying to deliver, because there's several houses that do not have the greenhouse signs, and it makes it hard for these people to be found. You'll see a motion coming up from security about raising the fee for breaking our gates. So that'll be coming up in a little while.
Okay, questions for Lori on security? Okay, thank you. And last but not least is Kevin on utility.
We have submitted to the Bylaws Committee a proposed additional deed restriction to grant a 3-foot work access area around any Candlewood infrastructure for water and sewer. There's several reasons for that. One is so that our employees can timely and safely and conveniently service any equipment that needs service, and that we've also added a phrasing in the proposed restriction that any existing landscaping that's already in place, the owner should just recognize that it may be damaged or removed or destroyed if they have to in order to service Candlewood's equipment. We do have existing utility easements, but that easement probably isn't adequate for a 3-foot work area. We have a 10-foot easement from the road to towards the property. Some of the infrastructure is beyond that, and then there's a 15-foot right-of-way easement, but that's only on the landscaping, or I'm sorry, it's on the sides of properties and the like, and it really doesn't take into effect or in consideration the access to grinders and other water infrastructure that may be in place. Next slide, please. These are things that are in progress. It's not on here. I found out today that our first report to the state EPA on the required metrics that we're supposed to file is in development and nearly finished and will be submitted soon. And then you can see here the other items is that We're still looking for a resolution on member questions regarding excess water charges, Armstrong's determination of what they can do for Unit 4 in terms of Wi-Fi options. We're probably completed now. We've been at 95% on updating our chemical feed tank and line rehab. Seeking additional quotes, as you already heard from Doug, on our water treatment, and that's close to being resolved from MAC so that the work can begin in December. We're waiting for an updated consulting services contract with McGee Water Technical Services, and we're waiting on the full implementation of a new reporting system that I believe Doug and Nate Wilson have developed for tracking water and sewer service calls. As far as long-term, the final slide, we are looking for continued input on financial reserves for water and sewer. We believe they should be segregated from other reserves. We're looking for determining the return on investment from pressure testing and cleaning the sewer lines, if that makes sense to do, and what it would entail. And then what, additionally, we had dismissed this at one point, but we heard a presentation at our last meeting from an organization that wishes to explore with us the use of perhaps solar-powered energy to supply electricity to association-owned buildings. If you're not familiar, the utilities operation, the electric bill is like $58,000 a year. It's a significant expense. And then we will have an open house, and we had originally thought we were going to meet on the 16th, and then we've decided to move it to the 9th. So our next meeting will be November 9th at the Lodge.
Okay, any questions for utilities while we're at it? Before we go to the balance of the committees, I'm going to take a couple of questions that came in with respect to committees while these guys are still here. Deb Dupilka, Unit 9, 281, can ECC make sure we stick to neutral and earth tone colors with siding? I assume we have no plans to change anything with that, Ron, in terms of our requirements on colors?
There's an approved color chart for siding, and we have no plans to revise that. It was revised a year ago, and have no plans to change it. Just the material, yes.
Yeah. So, okay, no plans to change. We have the colors and as submitted a year ago. So, okay, thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. And then another one was Rich McCluskey, Unit 7, Lot 80. Regarding lake and siltation, are you still planning to finish the culvert work in Unit 7 as previously stated? The trees and brush have already been cleared a few months ago. Is anyone familiar with the culvert work in Unit 7? We may not be. Nate's not here. Yeah, it wouldn't be lake and silt. No. Right. Yep, should be. So anybody, Doug, anybody aware of it? Can you check with Nate then? Okay. Okay, Rich, thanks for the question. We'll check with Nate on that. He's not here tonight, so we'll get back to you on your question there. And then just a comment from Deb Dupilka. Again, great job, security, on putting up the new arm when Gate D was recently down. So quick to get it done. So that was just a thank you comment. And then while it's up here, Rich McCluskey, 780, any word on why dredge has not finished in the current cove? It has been here since September. Do you have, Nate's not here to answer that, but.
That's a situation and so forth that a lot of that dredging is based upon just the weather and the items that are on the agenda that we have very little control over. For example, pulling the maintenance individuals out to prepare for the inspection of the dam, which is actually a year earlier than what we thought. So unfortunately in maintenance we have limited manpower, and we get to that when there's no emergencies that we have to address.
Do you know, as Nate has said before about finishing up, I believe that is Area 5?
Yes, that is Area 5, and that's his intentions to finish in that area by the end of November.
Okay. Yeah, and Rich, it's a good question because I think a lot of us have had the same one, that we've not had as many days dredging as we really should have had this year, and we're going to have to look at that in the budget to make sure we have the person power out there to make that happen, because we've got the equipment ready to go. So thank you for the question, and I think you heard Doug's response on that, so thank you. Okay, just to finish the committees, on the ad hoc side, is there anything from maintenance? Jim, anything other than the next meeting date? Oh, okay, November 11th, 4 o'clock for the next meeting date on maintenance. Anything on community events?
There's slides for maintenance and community events.
Okay. Back up to maintenance then, sorry.
The dredging update you just talked about, and now? All right, we just talked about the dredging update. Leaf pickup is starting November 4th. Speed and road sign installation continues. We've talked about that already. We did purchase the new maintenance truck, and we also talked about the sediment ponds at Lane Bridge, and all the work is scheduled for completion before the end of the year. The next meeting is November 11th at 4 o'clock at the lodge.
Okay.
Community events.
Yeah, go right ahead.
This is all subject to the approval of the board and the regulators in reference to COVID. But trunk or treat is this Sunday, November 3rd or November 1st, from 1 to 3 at Harmon Lodge. Community events is working with the Edison Church Food Bank on a non-perishable canned good drive. Donations can be dropped off at the association office. Community events will have their monthly meeting on November 3rd at 7 o'clock at the Harmon Lodge.
We just wanted to make everyone aware of the trunk or treat. A special thanks to Leslie Gherkin. She's been working with the health department on and off for the last several weeks. That is still up in the air. We're waiting for input from Morrow County and from the state, but in our ever-changing environment, that's something that we will decide within the next couple of days, but from the reports that we got today and so forth, it may be changing, and we'll make that decision after talking to Mr. Atkins and so forth moving forward. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed on that, but every day it looks a little less and less likely to happen. So I just wanted to inform you of that this evening.
Is there one more slide? Next slide. In honor of our veterans, a drive-through celebration will take place at the office on Sunday, November 7th from 1 to 3. Again, that's at the main office. Flags will also be placed on Candlewood Drive. Community events December meeting is December 1st at 7 p.m. at Harmon Lodge. And December 6th, there's a Christmas driving scavenger hunt for kids from 2 to 4. And again, that'll be subject to the regulators' approval.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Last ad hoc, actually the club, Fishing and Boating Club, and just the announcement here is that their normal annual meeting was canceled this year, again, due to COVID. They have quite the membership, and that just wasn't going to work out, so they're actually having a changing of officers, and that's being done through the mail, through email or the mail, and they'll be announcing some of that shortly there if you're part of the Fishing and Boating Club. So that wraps up committees and ad hoc committees. We'll go ahead and move into new business. And I'm going to turn this part over to Lori Parrish. There's the very first motion is just a normal motion. I shouldn't say normal, but it's just a motion that the board can act on. The ones after that, and I'll ask her to explain those a little further. They all kind of relate to a similar thing, and they actually require a member ballot issue because they impact either deed restrictions or bylaws. So I'll let Lori start off with this first one, and then she can explain how the other ones tie together and kind of walk everyone through this set of motions from Bylaws Committee. Thank you, Lori.
Okay, the first motion is a motion to accept the resignation of Patty Love from the Bylaws Committee. Patty, the family has sold their home and moved from Candlewood.
We have a move on that, Jonathan? Second? Charlie? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Thank you. That passes. And then you might want to maybe give a little overarching explanation, then you can walk through these individual ones. But
Okay. Most of these motions are geared to protect us from Airbnbs moving in or short-term tenants. We also we had a corporation contact Candlewood about buying 100 lots so that they could put homes on them and rent them. And that would be one of the last things we would want here at Candlewood Lake. So these motions are just tightening up the rental agreements and the policies for renting of homes. Okay, first motion is to add a sentence in the second paragraph of Article 4, Section 2 to read, when a residence is rented, a Candlewood Lake tenant-renters agreement must be submitted to the association office within 5 days of signing the lease and prior to the occupancy.
and just to be clear, this is something that has to go to a ballot, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a move? You want to move the motion, or?
Yes, I'll move it.
Lori, is there a second? Kevin, thank you. Okay, discussion.
Lori, is there a? I appreciate all the work that Bylaws has done here. Is there a red line section, kind of describing like what language is coming out or what it looks like before and after? The only reason why I ask that is because like this one, starting with this one, it's already covered on page 12 in our Bylaws, Article 4, Section 2, as far as the, it says when a residence is rented, a Candlewood Lake tenant rent agreement must be submitted to the association office. So my concern is if we keep adding sentences, or what's it look like, what's the final language look like if we were to adopt this? Because we wouldn't have two sentences in here that basically say the same thing or conflict.
I believe we would probably send a red line version out when it's voted upon.
I guess to me, we got to have that detail when we vote for it now. Is my concern at the moment. And additionally, we've already got the rule that states it, and I think the 5 days is pretty constrictive if you think about it, from an individual signing an agreement, submitting it to the office, especially when we have extended days when the office is closed, and getting it in and things like that. So I think it's a little restrictive, to be honest. And I would like to see the red line version, what it looks like as far as what's coming out, what's going in, but that's my perspective.
So are you saying that you want all these motions to go back to Bylaws and have it redlined and bring to the next meeting?
Well, we have to deal with this motion. It's on the table now, and then we can talk about the ones subsequently after that. But we have to deal with this motion that's on the table now.
Maybe a suggestion, since you just read that paragraph directly from it, and it was literally the exact same wording. Lori, something you could do is just propose to add the end of it within 5 days. If that's your, it seems like that's the intent of the motion. is that you want it within a period of time. So you could just suggest to amend that sentence to add within 5 days of signing the lease and prior to occupancy, the last, 8 to 10 words of that sentence. Just an idea of how you could move forward. Just an idea.
That's fine. Okay.
So how do you want to handle it?
And just out of curiosity, to Daryl's concern, is there a reason we want it in a certain period of time, just so we know what's going on, or what's your thought? What's the committee's thought there?
Committee's thought was that they would get it in and done, because if you've rented a place and they've signed everything, you've got 5 days. The office is open probably 3 of those 5 days. Right.
So it's just to make sure the office is aware and
That's
everything.
right.
Yeah.
To get it done.
That's the purpose. Okay.
Okay, so are we amending this motion? Because we've got actually a motion on the floor with a move and a second. We're going to have to presumably vote this one down.
We either table it, amend it, or vote it down.
Yeah.
Let's amend it to add that within the last part, within 5 days of signing the lease and prior to occupancy.
So you're adding that to the existing language that Daryl read?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess my only position, and I'll make my statement before I vote no, is I'd like to see that before I vote no, or before I vote yes, it would be my thing. So that would be my only, the only thing I assert on this is our bylaws are very particular, and we've had issues with wording in the past. We deal with wording issues consistently. So I'd want to see that. I don't want to see it, I guess, is my point, and understand to make sure that it's concise and clear. But I do think that the 5 days is very restrictive. I would be a little more in favor prior to occupancy per se, but I think the 5 days is very constrictive of when the tenor or when the agreement's signed. I think that's very restrictive.
Any other comments, discussion?
I guess I had a few comments on this.
I guess I had a few comments on this, and that we don't even know how many rentals we have here at Candlewood. I've asked several times how many we have. We've told 8. 2 of them are board members. We only leave 6 people, and nobody knows how many we really have here. Does anybody have a good idea?
I can't say I do. I've heard the same things you have, but I think they were guesstimates, and it's.
We have 8 case counting. Now it's up.
What was that number?
We had one person sold in recently to get done, and
I guess my concern is how many does this affect really, and what's the reasoning behind all these motions on this? If it's Airbnbs, let's put it in writing instead of beating around the bush.
I do think, and to Ned's point, I do think we'll get to one that deals with that specifically, but yeah, I would agree. So I'll call for the question.
For those on the webcast, we're just pausing for a moment.
Okay, so where are we at? You're wanting. You call for the vote. Now there is one issue. If for any board member that is involved in rentals, if there's any of us there, we probably should recuse ourselves. from the vote?
For the record, as of Friday, I am not. So.
Okay, very good. Okay, so the motion, Lori, can you recap the motion that's on the floor with the revision that was made?
Okay, the sentence reads, this is in the second paragraph of Article 4, Section 2. We wanted to read, when a residence is rented, a Candlewood Lake tenant renters agreement must be submitted to the Association of Office, and we're adding within 5 days of signing the lease and prior to occupancy.
Okay. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Aye. Okay. Let's do a hand vote on the yeses, the ayes for the motion. We have 3. Okay. All those against? Well. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it on? Okay, anyway, Greg and I have had a lot of opportunity to research this issue, and I've had some input from other experts in this area, and it says in our bylaws that we are governed by Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order has a specific section for small boards of 12 people or less in Robert's Rules, and I don't have it with me because I didn't know it was coming up, but it says that the chairperson does not have to recuse himself from voting, that since they aren't a member in a small board, that they have the opportunity to discuss and to vote, even if there is a tie or not a tie. So at this point, I know we have been doing it differently in the past, but based on Greg's request of me and my input from other people and research I've done, I'm fairly comfortable in saying that Greg can vote on any issue that he wants right now without having to wait for a tie. Is that about what you figured, Greg?
Yes, it is. The point, though, is also is it was 3-4. Is that correct? And 3 against.
Yes, it was a tie.
But a majority is 5. So it's not reaching majority. Anyway, so, I mean, either way, it's done. That the way you see it, George? Yeah, it was 3. We must have had some people abstain that didn't announce that, but we had 3-4, 3 against. And no, not a majority. A majority is 5. Correct. 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 The board members.
Well, a majority is the number of board members present as long as we have a quorum.
Correct.
And so a quorum for you guys basically would be 5. Okay. So a majority of 5 would be 3, of 6 would be 4, 7 would be 4. So anyway, since we got 9 people here, the majority of 5.
Right.
And that was
okay. So the motion fails. Okay, Lori, go ahead to the next one, please.
My question's to Daryl. Are you going to object to each one of these since you don't have the red line?
No.
Okay.
I get the premise behind it, but to Ned's point, can we simplify it? Like the overarching issue, short-term rentals?
There is a motion on here about short-term rentals and rental property that is rented, that has the owner turn in the rent tenant agreement.
Yeah, that's a problem because that rule's already in place.
Well, and one of the things too, somebody supposedly saw at their place of work on a local bulletin board that a Candlewood Lake home was being rented for by the day up here, including use of the boat. And we've had a number of incidences where people have come up here, used a boat that they maybe have never driven a boat before and not followed any of the laws here, the rules here at the lake. And so it is a huge problem. And I guess the question is, how do we counter that? Because maybe we do have adequate rules in place, but obviously, since we already say you have to rent for a minimum of 6 months, having having Airbnb is almost ridiculous because Airbnbs just aren't oriented towards long-term rentals.
You want to go on to the next motion? If there's no more questions at this time?
Okay, the next motion is to add the following paragraph to Article 4, Section 2. Regardless of the number of residential lots owned by the same person, the voting member is entitled to only one vote in membership meeting. That's just to clarify that you do only have, regardless. I mean, it's pretty simple. You only get one vote.
Okay, are you moving that?
I'll move it.
Lori? Move, is there a second? Jonathan? Any discussion?
Just one quick question. What jumps to my mind is lots owned by the same person, regardless of the number of residential lots owned by the same person. The voting members only. So we get two votes because we have two people on the deed. Is this not? It says it's not affecting that, right?
No.
Okay, good. I'm good then. Yep.
Any other discussion?
So it's already covered. This particular motion is already covered in the bylaws, Article 3, Section 2 on page 10. It says, regardless of the number of residential lots owned by the same person, the voting member is entitled to only one vote in member meetings. However, if more than one person owns more than one lot as shown in the deeds, different owners may be designated by the voting member for each owned lot. So it already talks about you can only one person gets one vote. And so it's already, I guess my point is it's already covered in the bylaws on the previous page. So this one is really unnecessary, is my point. It's already covered by voting in the bylaws.
Read that one more time.
Regardless of the number of residential lots owned by the same person, the voting member is entitled to only one vote in member meetings. So that's what we're talking about here. And so it's already covered in the bylaws. This would be a duplicate statement.
Were you reading out of the bylaws just then?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that was because I was looking at the motion and it was word for word.
Yeah, I'm reading out of the bylaws, Article 3. Hold on, I'll cite it. Article 3, Section 2, page 10, second paragraph.
Lori, could you look at that and see if you agree?
I think they're just clarifying the rental section about voting.
I just don't want duplicate statements in the bylaws or where we got to cover it in more than one place if we've ever got to change it again. I mean, it's already covered. They get one person gets one vote. And if there's two names on the deed, then there's two people that get the vote. But if one person owns more than one property, it's still one person, one vote.
Does that suffice to you, Lori? Is this redundant?
It is redundant, but I think they're aiming to make sure it's clarified in the plenary agreement thing, that section.
I just think it overcomplicates our rules.
Yeah.
And we have that problem already.
Okay. Well, couple choices. We need to vote it, or you need to withdraw it, I think, at this point. Okay. Okay.
The next one is to clarify, this is to add Article 4, Section 2. A renter or tenant is defined as a non-voting member of the association who resides in the Candlewood Lake residence where the property owner does not reside. And what they were doing is trying to clarify the definition of a tenant and that they do not have voting rights. And I'll move the motion.
You move that. Is there a second? Jonathan, thank you. Discussion on this motion.
Once again, Article 3, Section 3, and I can sympathize with defining a tenant, but tenant's a pretty descriptive word. Section B, tenants under associate members. And so today, the way they exist is tenants are considered associate members based on the renter-tenant agreement. And so they're already defined here. Tenants are regular occupants of a dwelling in the subdivision and his or her spouse, significant other living at the same residence. My only other concern is here, if someone were to sublet, I mean, we're not saying multifamily, but sublet to an individual person, this would not cover that individual. So there is a scenario where, say, for instance, you subletted to an like rented a room, for example, to an individual. This statement would exclude the definition of that person, and they couldn't be an associate member, for example. So they wouldn't be able to participate in Candlewood amenities and things like that. But it would require, under the current rules, they would be required to fill out a renter-tenant agreement. So I guess this language is flawed as well.
Any other discussion? You want to withdraw this one? Okay.
This is a lot of the work that the Bylaws worked on last winter and didn't get to the board in spring because of the COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next one is change the wording in Article 4, Section 2. All rentals must be at least 6 months or longer. No transient occupancy or short-term rentals will be permitted in the Candlewood Lake Association. And I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second? Is there a second? Jonathan? Discussion? Any more discussion from, I think it's self-explanatory.
I just ask where does it sit in that paragraph on Section 2? Because it says change the wording, but you're adding to it, correct?
Yeah.
So I guess my only question is what it looks like and where's it at? Because the way it's phrased here is we're going to change the wording, Article 4, Section 2, to this one sentence, right? I just want to make it very clear that where it's going to sit in the language and what language remains.
You want this red line?
It would be fantastic if we could table it till we can get a red line amendment from Bylaws Committee. So I'll move to table it pending a red line version, which we can amend for the board to vote on to send to the membership.
Okay.
Because I do concur with this. I think Ned concurs with this. Everybody that's talked with the opposition, like, this is what we need. We do need to keep the Airbnbs and stuff. Like, we're not geared to that, right? Like, right now, we're not geared to that. That's not part of our mission and vision. So I do agree with this.
Yeah, just one suggestion: when you redline it, Laurie, maybe all you really need is the first sentence, because by definition, that's, no transient occupancy or short-term rentals will be permitted. With the first sentence, that already covers that, and people's definition of transient or short-term could be different. So I think the first sentence is very, very clear. I'd just leave it at that. Just a suggestion.
And then consider duration as well. I mean, 6 months may be good, 3 months may be good. We're just looking to get rid of the very short term, right?
No 2 week, 1 week, 2 week, 3 week kind of stuff, yeah.
Right. I would just ask the bylaws committee to strongly consider duration. Like for example, students and things like that. We never know what people may try to attempt that may be beneficial to the community, for example.
So Laura, you okay then tabling this? Okay. And just as we go on, I think you've got a couple more left, but if you want to consider whether just at this point, just taking it back and doing the red line on all of them, but that's up to you. Yeah, because if you can bring the ones that you settle on in that version, in that red line version for December, because these all have to go to ballot issue anyway in May, unless we do something in between, which I don't know the chance of. And I think, do you have one more? I would think so.
Well, do we have the discussion on them? And like the red line and the issue are two separate concerns, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, there's points and subjects which we can talk about them later. If the meeting's dragging on, we can talk about them later. But these motions carry significant impact and consequence. So even if we get them out there to the membership, we can then gather some input and talk about them later if we choose to table them.
Yeah. Yeah, I would suggest we do that. Talk about them later. Let the committee go back and figure out how they want to present this, which ones make sense, and have the context all correct. What language is staying, what language is going, etc. And does that also apply for this last one, Lori? On the next page. Okay, then after that, you've got some that you'll have to let me know. You got two more that are different. Article 7.
Oh, that one. Yeah, that came. That one. I'll read that one. Okay, this is a motion to add a sentence to Article 7, Section 5. This would be a sentence just added to the bottom of the paragraph. To become president, a trustee must have served 1 year on the board to learn the policies and procedures of Candlewood Lake Association and its board. It's always been assumed whenever we've chosen the officers at the meeting that they would have a year on the board at least, but it's not in the bylaws. It's just been an assumption, and I thought we need to put it in the bylaws rather than assuming every year. There's a lot to learn when you get on the board. I'll move it. Well, they can elect any officer they want, but when you first get on the board, there's a lot to learn about board procedures, and to become the president of the board, we think they should have at least 1 year to learn all the procedures of the board.
Is that all you want to say, Jim? I'll side with Jim, but even greater yet, it puts a lot of constraints around the board, like where we may not be able to have a president. Like, for example, we have 5 new board members this calendar year. And so just depending on the circumstances, that could put the board in a very tight position to function and require a membership vote to basically provide an exception to the bylaws. So it could put the board in a very, very tough position, provided a unique set of circumstances which almost presented themselves this year. So that's what I would say to that.
Yeah, I'm going to actually weigh in on this one too, which I normally go last or not at all on these things, but I have to agree with both of the speakers so far. I think it's, I would disagree. I think it's an elected board has the right to choose their leader. I get the point of it, but in this particular year, here's a real live example. Kevin came on board after the fact, so next year he couldn't be president or vice president of the board, and even though he's had almost a year on it, and this was an unusual year with the number of people we're excluding from the possibility of the two top offices is pretty significant. And again, I just don't think, I think we ought to look for the best person. I get the gist of it, but I think we ought to leave it up to the board to elect the very best person they think in those two positions. So that's my thought.
Can I go ahead and just withdraw the motion then?
Yeah, no, I think, any other discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and, you want to read the motion again or anything, or?
Okay, to become president, a trustee must have served 1 year in the board to learn the policies and procedures of Candlewood Lake Association and its board.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Aye. The motion fails. Okay, then you've got the second one. Okay. Okay, then it looks like there is one straggler motion there at the bottom, Lori. I don't. Back to bylaws. All right, I'm sorry, there's one more straggler on the top of the next page. Okay. Okay, the next motion actually is from administration, and I'll let Doug speak to this once we get through it here, but the verbiage on it is to retroactively and in the future authorize the general manager or ECC to sign ECC permits. Do we have a move on that? Charlie, is there a second? Chris, okay. Do you want to kind of talk about the genesis of this?
Yeah, this is something that has just come up recently with the void that is in the administrative process with us not having an ECC person on board right now. A lot of times this is for tree permits or color permits or something along those lines, and then I would either go to Ron or George or so to sign off on that, or Leslie for the color permits, since I'm colorblind. So those are things that we just want to put in place to help expedite the process before an ECC person is in place, or when they're not available at that time.
Okay, so and just a question I have is that the signatures is in addition to other required signatures on each permit, correct? So it's not a overriding type signature or anything. It's just a signature. Okay, thank you.
Well, if we do
My question is, when you say ECC, are you talking for signing where the inspector would normally sign? Because you already have two ECC members sign a permit, plus the inspector, correct?
Yes, that would be where the inspector would normally sign.
Okay, I guess my only thought would be, shouldn't that be ECC committee chair or co-chair? Not any member? Because you could basically just have three members come up and sign. I'm saying ECC committee chair signs for the general manager or the inspector. Yes. Because I don't think you want, I think you want someone in authority of that committee to make that, whether it's Doug or the chairperson, the case that it is now.
Okay. Can you accept that amendment to read, authorize the general manager or ECC committee chair?
Yes.
You're okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, carries. Thank you. Okay, next one is a motion from security. Lori, do you want to take this one?
This motion is to increase the fine for deliberately breaking any gate to $250 plus the cost of gate repairs. Morrow County Sheriff will be contacted at the discretion of the general manager. I think it's pretty self-explanatory when we know that the gate has deliberately broken, not if it's accidentally come down on a boat trailer or a truck trailer or something, but when it's deliberately broken, we want to put some teeth into this fine.
Okay. Do we have a move on this?
Also move.
Ned is a second. Any discussion?
What's the current fine? $100. And then have we seen a number of repeat violators after having paid the $100 fine?
Yes, we have. We have seen a number of those individuals do it repeatedly over and over again.
So the same people do it, and the fine's progressive, correct? Or is it $100 per violation?
I believe it's $100 per violation.
So it's not progressive, like 100, 200?
No.
Okay.
And a lot of times when they break the gate, it's not just the board itself, they break the mechanism to it, and then it's really costly for us to repair those.
It's actually in addition to the fine.
So we're currently charging to repair it? And people are paying that?
Well, to this point, that has been turned over to the prosecutor, and he will determine that and so forth. And sometimes they are only charged with the one offense. So that's something that I think is very critical moving forward, building a relationship with those individuals in Morrow County so they can be a little bit more supportive than they have been in the past, Jonathan. But some of those charges for those, depending on the gates, could be several thousands of dollars.
But you said there's already a case like in the court, right? I mean, property damage is property damage, so the community, the association can choose to either in small claims or via criminal prosecution pursue damages, correct? Regardless of this statement.
Do you want to answer that?
His answer was yes to the crowd. So I guess I'm not saying that it's not justified, but I think 100 has enough teeth. And my concern is if the interpretation of deliberate could be misconstrued for one individual versus another. And so, I mean, I don't think it's the 100 or the 250, to be very honest. Furthermore, I think the community needs to get better at enforcement, which I think we have as of recent, but that was lax for a very long time. So I believe there's other methods in which to do it, and I think we continue to up fines and penalties and things like that, and in hopes that it will change the behavior. And in my opinion and perspective, that doesn't influence the behavior. So I'm opposed to this.
Any other discussion? Comments? Discussion? Charlie?
I would like to see the fine moved up to 500. It is just so ludicrous. We were behind somebody who was in an SUV, and they obviously either just didn't have their key card, or it wasn't working or something, because they moved way over toward the fence and then went through, and the whole side of their car is being scraped by the arm, and it just breaks the thing off, and they drive away.
Yes,
I mean,
I agree with Charlie 100%, because I guarantee we're not recouping any of those dollars to repair these gates from individuals. Guarantee that's not happening to the board.
Any other discussion? We'll go forward with what we have unless you want to amend anything on the numbers on this.
Well, it was nice, it was a security committee that came up with the $250.
Yeah, well, let's just call the question on it then. Okay. All right, motion to increase the fine for deliberately breaking any gate to $250 plus the cost of gate repairs. Morrow County Sheriff will be contacted at the discretion of the general manager. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
One thing that'll help a lot with this is when we have better cameras, or at least the better fiber optics, so the cameras operate better. And then, in fact, the security committee could view it and get a consensus of whether or not this appeared to be deliberate or accidental.
Yeah, and that's part of the three-legged stool on this thing is it's not just fines. The fine, I think that was the intent, but part of it also is the communication on it, and then also the actual ability to determine whether something through clear camera work and better pixel resolution to actually catch people and see the intent and manage it that way. Yeah.
Doug, of these repeat offenders, have they been paying their fines, or are they just accumulating those fines?
I would say the repeat offenders have not paid on a regular basis and so forth, and they're building a case against individuals as they break multiple signs. I know in July and August we probably had as many as 6 or 8 gates per week broken. So I think that's dropped in the last several weeks, but as Charlie had indicated, a big improvement will come once we have the fiber optics to the gate to see the resolution of the vehicles actually going through there, and I think that will help tremendously.
Just a side comment on when the gates drop down. If we put, I don't know, either there or on the side, just a thought. If you put a sign that states what the fines are now, $250 plus cost of replacement, it could be like. Even if it's somebody who comes in and out here occasionally, but it's one of the people that, on their own dumb time decide to break the gate. If they know those in advance, they might not know that it was changed here at the board meeting, but if I don't know if it makes sense to post it or not, but, just getting the message out that this could be thousands and thousands of dollars might change some attitudes as well.
Yeah, agreed.
Also, Joe Butler's article in the Chronicle will address that too. So people are going to be aware of the speed fines, fines for breaking gates and so forth. And now that we're going to prosecute them and get Morrow County Sheriff involved, I think that will be a deterrent for those individuals who want to do that on a regular basis.
All right. The next 3 motions are actually from the voting work group, and I can go through these, Chris, and I'll turn it over to you when it comes time to explanations or discussions. But the first motion is from the Boating and Lake Rules Regulation Work Group, and the motion states, motion to accept all included updates and changes to the Candlewood Lake Handbook sections as defined in section 3.1.1 attached, and to also replace such sections with the newly proposed format in 3.1.2 attached. Do I have a move? Charlie? Second? Chris? Okay, got a discussion. Chris, do you want to give a little quick background or?
Yeah, sure. The quick background on this is as part of the overall work group's kind of strategic directions, and what we were trying to do was clean up the overall rules and regulations, and a red line was provided to the board of the specific changes that would be made here. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but as an example, changing boat registrations to water permit fees, clarifying what's included is for safety things, inflatable locations, and just a number of things that you guys all saw in the red line. One of the larger changes, though, above and beyond cleaning up a lot of the language and the specifics, is actually the new format, which is 3.1.2 of the packet that was provided to you. And the recommendation on that is to adopt that as the newly proposed rules and regulations format that would go in the information handbook, and that would also be passed out as hard copy during boat permit fee registrations, for lack of better words. That way we have consistency. And it also allows for one of the changes in there is around the fine structure of breaking any one of the given rules. We now have the rules and regulations are now numbered, 3.1, 2.1, 2.2. So basically you just point to the simple rule, the rule that was broken, and then substantiate the fine. So that's kind of the background on it.
Discussion from the board?
Question to the work group. In looking at the red line, blue line version, there's an asterisk item that says anything not specifically covered in this document is governed by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources voting laws. That is not limited to that section, but your entire document. Is that correct? I just want to clarify that. Okay,
yes, that is correct.
Because it kind of falls in the skiing tubing area, and I want to make sure you really meant for it to apply to the entire document.
It applies to the entire document.
Thanks.
Yeah. ODNR rules govern the lake, so yeah.
In this handout, you're going to have the threefold. Okay. In the handout that you're going to have here, you have the cost of a dock per year. Do we want to put that price in there? Because then every time we change the rates for rental fees, we'll have to change the brochure. Same way with the cost of boating, watercraft permits.
I know what you're saying, Ned, and yes, you're right. We would have to change this. We would have to vote to change this document if those fees change. But the deliverable of the work group, and what the work group decided was we wanted one document. We limited ourselves to one page, front and back, that was all things boating. And to be honest, it's kind of our some people's goals to do all this with a lot of our documentation to where it's all centralized. And to be honest, I don't know that I want the fees continually changing. If you look, our fee has been this since the dredging started. And then the dock fees did change last year, but I would almost discourage the readily changed structure of the fees, only because people get confused. It's hard for the office to manage. We want it to be in front of people, right? We want the costs of these items to be in front of people.
And Daryl, what I would add is Ned, to your point, it would need change in this document. it still would need changed in the information handbook, like the way it is today. So it's still being changed in a document, one way or the other. It's got to be documented somewhere. So it's still a change somewhere. Here we've kind of consolidated where that is.
Okay, next thing is on the placement of inflatables. We used to have a 15-foot.
Ned, can you hold that really close? People are complaining about sound.
Okay, on the Lake General inflatables, we used to have a 15-foot from your dock, and now it's at the discretion, basically, of whoever's wanting to complain. Do you think we're going to open ourselves up for more complaints because now it's at a discretionary?
Yeah, the thought there is that some of these inflatables and water mats, if you will, are 15 feet themselves, right? So it would have to be on, some of them are 18 feet, so it'd have to be on the land in order to be, the 18-foot ones would have to be on the land or on top of the dock in order to not be 15. So what made sense to us is it needs to be, obviously, there was kind of two requirements. Number one is not interfere with boating traffic, right? So that's number one. And number two, as close as possible to the dock as reasonably possible. So those are the kind of the two requirements that made sense without putting a quote unquote foot on it, or feet on it, not knowing the size of the inflatable they have.
Okay, my third comment is in your map here, this little cove right here across from the lodge, you have that all red as no wake. And I know a lot of people drop off skiers or start skiers from that spot. So are you saying we're not allowed to do that anymore? Because the buoys do go back into that cove some distance.
That is a good catch. So
I tried to represent that the best I could, but I could move that back to reflect what the buoys. I don't know if we wanted that to be an amendment. I guess we can officially say that, but we can alter that document to reflect what the buoys represent. But we did want to represent that whole cove is not a ski cove. I agree with you. You can drop skiers and stuff back there, but there are buoys there representing that part of it is no wake.
Just correcting the map.
Okay.
Yeah, and the
final edition.
And it also talks about within the ski buoys. So the buoys are the physical things out there. So we can adjust the map as much as possible. But good point, Ned. We'll see if we can push the red back a little bit just to reflect that.
Any other discussion?
I got one more comment.
Yep.
Nowhere in here have we defined what excessive wake is. And that's going to leave a big hole, as far as I'm concerned, for security to be able to enforce anything on wake.
I'll address that. So that was intentionally left out of this motion, not to say that we have a definition yet for what excessive wake is, but that was left out of this motion to get the documentation and the simplicity of the rules put forward. I do agree that wakes need to be addressed, and you'll see that in a subsequent motion that was split out. The work group felt any of the hot topics, like there's a couple of them that are subsequent motions, should be separated because we didn't want to tie up the simplification of this for the most part is clarity of rules, and then on the one-page document. That's what we try to achieve for the most part, the bulk of it, right? So the wake will be addressed hopefully later.
Yeah, and actually, just for clarity, Darren, that the wake is not addressed later. So that's something that we do not have addressed in here. We have a rule, that wake enhancing devices cannot be used. That is still in here. The work group completely agrees with that rule. At this point, we have no definitive, definition of what is what word do I want to use? Excessive wake. Thank you. What is an excessive wake by any boat? Any boat, any pontoon boat, any ski boat, anything. We do not have a definitive definition of that because it is very subjective. Of course, the board, myself, I think everybody would be open if someone can define that to everybody's, something that's firm enough to implement. I would recommend they bring that forward to the board.
Any other discussion?
I just got one final comment. None of these rules went back to any committees, correct? Such as security long-range planning, lake and siltation?
No,
think
it's
so.
it's in our deed restrictions that the board is responsible for lake rules, lake and boating rules. So the work group recommended it directly to the board.
Anything else?
Early on, some things did go back and forth with security committee, back when Bill Grubb was on security committee. So there were some items that went back and forth early on. This is the result of nearly, I think it's 11 months worth of work, right, Chris? I think the work group was formed in December, if I'm not mistaken. So early on, there was some back and forth with security. I think there was Bylaws, Tracy McQuillan, when she was on, it actually provided us documentation. So there were committees counseled early on but after that, no.
Okay, anything else? If not, I'll just read the motion real quick again. Motion to accept all included updates and changes to the Candlewood Lake Handbook sections as defined in section 3.1.1 attached, and to also replace such sections with the newly proposed format in 3.1.2 attached. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion carries. Okay, the next motion is actually, I'm going to read it. It was emailed. The one in the original board packet was an older one, so I'll read the actual one that I think everybody hopefully has. And it is as follows. Motion to remove the rule from the information handbook that states no new watercraft permits for boats with wake enhancing devices on Candlewood Lake, unquote, and to remove board policy pound 03.026.17 from March 27, 2017 that states, quote, approved motion to prohibit the new registration of boats with wake enhancing devices on Candlewood Lake. Do I have a move on that one? Lori, second. Jonathan, discussion?
Yeah, so the background on this on behalf of the boat group, a lot of work went into this one. Of course, I don't think doesn't need a whole lot of discussion here, at least from my side. Look forward to the discussion after. But basically, this was a new rule. I say new rule. This was a more recent rule that was put in place in 2017, based on the work that we did. Many months of research. We feel this is really a rule that was kind of put in place that really shouldn't have been put in place in the first place. We did a number of things. We did a membership survey. I know there were some questions about. The membership survey was not a vote, so to speak. The membership survey was just to, get membership sentiment, if you will. We had 280 some responses, and it was a random survey. And when I say random, I mean because it went to the entire Candlewood Lake email group. So if your email was on file, it went to you. There was no picking and choosing who it went to. It went to everybody who had their email certified, or not certified, but on file with the office. The membership survey showed 54% favored this and 46% didn't. Just to kind of take the question out of the whole membership survey, I would kind of offer the thought that even if you flipped those results and it was 46 that didn't approve and 54 that did, and then to take it a step further, give a plus or minus 5% on the flipping it, you're still going to have 40+%, almost half of Candlewood, that feels that this was not a correct motion to begin with. So regardless, that's just some comments on the survey. We did a lot of work to understand the legal ramifications of this with both internal and Candlewood counsel and external counsel with John Jolly. We also recognize that this rule is against ODNR rules, so we know that this is against Ohio law as it sits today, and also nearly all other OLCA lakes. There was only one other we could find that had something like this. So along those lines, we really felt that allowing boats with wake enhancing devices, being very clear that we do not support the use of them. There's already a rule that states that they cannot be used. We agree with that rule. That rule should stay in place. And simply limiting boats, based on a feature that they have is really discriminating, against a specific boat or family or people that enjoy that type of boat. We don't discriminate against cars that we have in here because they have motors that go faster than the speed limit, or golf carts that have off-road tires, but yet we don't allow them to go off-roading in here, or anything like that. So, for all of those reasons, we recommend approving this motion. And additionally, when I look at, like I said, we went to paid engagement without external counsel. And the very first sentence of John Jolly's conclusion says, "It is clear that the position of the state is that your," meaning Candlewood Lakes, "rules and regulations, unless approved by ODNR, must not be in the nature of a condition for the right to operate a boat on the lake." So by saying this feature, they cannot operate on the lake, we are knowingly, violating that rule. So, my opinion, being a board member, to operating in our fiduciary responsibility to vote against or even abstain from voting for this when we know it is against our external counsels and ODNR laws, we wouldn't be upholding that responsibility. So I'll stop there.
Need a microphone, please.
Yeah, for those who don't know who John Jolly is, he is the attorney for the OLCA, Ohio Lake Community Association. He's the attorney for all Ohio lakes.
Another discussion? Anybody?
Okay, am I on? I'd like to just counter what Chris just said. I was at the same meeting with Attorney Jolly. We cannot implement the ODNR rules on the water, but we have a right to implement rules that we want on the road, and we could prohibit wake boats from using our boat ramp. So I want to make that clear. I also want to make sure that we understand that there was a committee prior to this committee that was installed to look at the same process, and this committee was involved first, and they overruled the security committee meeting. But out of that, Mr. Burris did come up with some facts, and I'm sure the board has been copied with that report. The one problem with wake boats is they make large waves. Large waves in our lake mean bigger riprap. Bigger riprap means more cost to the homeowners and the association. It's just common sense. Candlewood is a 250-acre lake. We have 8 wake boats now on the lake. If you go out there with 2 of those boats on the water, it is very difficult for a pontoon boat or a kayak or a canoe to navigate the lake. Just imagine if that number doubles or triples. Again, we are not bound by ODNR as far as our roads are concerned, so we can restrict wake boats. And as far as other boats, there's more than enough options than wake boats out there in the marketplace at this point in time. So I would just like to stress that fact that the attorney did have an open mind as far as what we can do with wake boats, but it cannot be addressed on the water.
Okay. Other discussion?
I guess my other comment on that is, if a wake boat is on this lake making excessive wake, legally, can we stop him? Because it is state water, and I don't think our security staff can stop that person other than saying, we'd rather you not. But if he decides he wants to, I don't think we can stop him.
Ned, it's the same as any other boat making excessive wake. It's the exact same situation. And again, this is about a feature on a boat, right? And that feature can be purchased on Amazon for $150 and put in any boat. So again, discriminating against a given feature of a boat. Anyways, go ahead, Daryl.
So, Ned, I think to directly answer your question, boat operators are legally responsible for their wakes. So if your wake causes property damage to an individual or harms a person, the owner of that boat is legally liable for that damage. So to answer your question, yes, they could be penalized if their wake were to damage other personal property other than their own, or if it caused harm to an individual. And that's regardless of boat type. Okay? Like regardless of boat type, whether or not it contains a wake enhancing device. And the facts are this: the wake enhancing devices only increase the wake of the boat when in use. Okay? I want to make that clear because many of these boats, whether it be Malibu, Mastercraft, Moomba, actually make smaller wakes due to the design of the hull than most IOs and other type boats make. So when the wake enhancing device is not in use, these boats actually make smaller wakes and cause less damage to the lake. But make no mistake, regardless of type of boat, and that was very well communicated, and you can look in Ohio law, you are responsible for the damage that your wake creates.
And then one thing I forgot to mention, as I was specifically asked by a member to address the question, should this be a vote of the membership? And I look at it from two perspectives, and one of them is one Jim covered. So on the water, the rule is against ODNR law, and that's what governs. So to knowingly put a topic in front of the membership that is against the law from that perspective is not the right move. To Jim's point on the roads, so that's roads or ramps, which is what we're doing with the watercraft permit fee. Our ramps are not monitored ever. We have gates that are not monitored ever. So anybody can come in whenever they want, drop in the water, and then they're on the water legally. So from that perspective, to put something in front of the membership that knowingly there's no way possible for it to ever be enforced is also not the right thing to do. So that's, again, my personal view on that. I think that's the two ways to look at it. But anyways, that's...
Any other discussion?
My only rebuttal to that would be, again, we have not defined what excessive wake is. So I don't know how we can ask our security forces to go out there and tell someone that's not excessive wake. And you just basically said, we can't patrol that, we can't stop that.
And we agree, but that's an issue for all boats, not for this specific type of boat. We agree. So we are open for ideas to address that for anybody that comes up with.
Well, as far as enforcement goes, Ned, is if you are utilizing a wake enhancing device, meaning if security stops you and you have a fat sack, I try to think of a better word, but if you have a fat sack filled up with water, if you have a wake plate down, if you have a surf plate out, I'm very familiar with wake enhancing devices. If you're utilizing any of those, then you're violating the rule, right? So regardless of, like, if you have an IO, okay, not a wake boat, if you have an IO and you have a fat sack sitting in your transom and it's filled up with water and you're throwing a huge wake, you're throwing a surf wake, a roller, a 3-foot roller, whatever it is, right? The ones that people complain about. Security stops you and you have 300 gallons of water on your boat that you filled up with a fat sack, which is a wake enhancing device, you're in violation. And you can be fined according to CLO 15.
Until someone takes you to court on it. Because basically, we have no jurisdiction on that lake. Only ODNR, sheriff's deputy, or constable. Our security has no teeth in their rules.
I won't. It's not for me to decide what's going to be decided in a court of law. but understand that if your boat is creating a wake that is causing damage, whether it be to personal property or people, then that is when it becomes a legal issue. I agree 100%. And we need to get better at, enforcing the large wake rule and at minimum educating people, right? Telling people that large wakes are not condoned or permitted on this lake. You can't do things, and that is a rule, right? It's a rule in our rules, and still remains, even if this gets voted for, that when you're creating excessive wakes or driving your boat in a manner that creates excessive wake, that's wake enhancing. So if you're operating your boat in a way that creates an excessive wake using a wake enhancing device, whether it's trim, whether it's wake plate, whether it's fat sack, whatever that is, concrete cinder blocks, right? You're in violation of the rule. And so, as with any other rule, I agree with you, Ned. They can all go to court of law, but as with any other rule, it's enforceable and you can be fined via CLO 15. And if a member decides to take it up in a court of law, if they cause damage to another member's shoreline, for example, and it can be proven, that's up to the Morrow County courts to decide.
And that's true for any boat.
Yeah. True.
Is there any way that we can have some cameras, in our ongoing security efforts, if some cameras could be placed at, like, near the dam and near the turnaround that's down there at the dam where excessive wakes, I would think, would be most likely to be viewable, so that I know somebody told me that at one point they were outside and a wake came by that was so big it lifted a neighbor's boat up onto their dock. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they said. But everybody was so upset and watching all that was going on that nobody caught sight of, nobody could identify the boat. But if in fact, there were some cameras that could demonstrate, this is the only, I don't know, would that help at all with enforcement to make sure that, if somebody's out there, that we can demonstrate who it was?
Let's start with the gates. My opinion, Charlie, right? If we can't get the gates done, you're going to be hard pressed to get the lake done. But if we have patrol out there, right, they have body cameras on. When lake patrol is out there, they have body cameras on. So we could potentially capture some of that if we follow our own rules and staff the lake like we want to.
Anything else? I'm going to weigh in on this one as well, because I think this one is very important to the association, and somebody mentioned it already. All of our fiduciary duty here is to analyze this, to study it, look at everything, and do what's right for both the association and the members. And just one quick point is those are really two separate things, too. The members are the association, but we're also about protecting the association. So that goes into the thinking. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. The entire board has had discussions on this. We've had the two attorneys involved. So I, too, have been approached about should this be a member vote, that type of a thing. But as I thought about that, I said, you know what, it's within our purview to do this, to discuss this up or down. We went through all the due diligence. We talked to the attorneys. We had conference call with ODNR. We've had a town hall. We've had all the discussions that we're out there to have. And I truly believe, and where I came down on it is that the board should act. The board should stand up and take a stand one way or the other. And I'm not here to say which way that is, but I do want to share my takeaways on this, because I think it's important. I don't always do that, but on smaller things, but I think this is a big one. When I broke this down to look at this as to how I would vote if I was voting, which I will, is I looked at it three different ways. The first way was from a legal perspective, and quite frankly, it's not the most compelling of the three reasons, but it's still compelling. And my takeaway from all the meetings we had, all the discussions we had, is that I think, in my opinion, I think we're stretching the property rights argument. That's through our HOA covenants. I think we're stretching that quite a bit when we start to single out a narrow aspect of a sport boat and call them, wake boats, if you will, and prohibit those. Because under the property rights provision, we can do things like, who's going to question when which we do. We prohibit houseboats, we prohibit 35-foot boats. We prohibit jet skis. All those things are in the rules. This is entirely different than that. It's a very narrow slice of a sport boat. And in my mind, I think that puts us on a little shakier ground, and that was actually some of the verbiage we heard from the attorney discussions we had, that we found ourselves on a little shakier ground. A couple of the things that they've talked about here is, of course, we don't know the outcome of the challenge, but a stronger defense. We have a stronger defense in protecting members versus restricting choices. That's something that really resonated with me. So to me, that says, do something about that excessive wake, and that's a to-be-done thing, Ned, versus restricting choices. Another way of saying that is, and we heard this as well, or I heard this as well, we're in a better position to try to control harmful activity versus controlling the types of boats that we will permit. So again, focus on the activity and the negative outcome, not the particular type of boat. And then the last comment just on this is the boat itself is not the problem. It is the few who use the device or operate any boat in a certain way to produce a large wake. And I think we do know that any boat, particularly some of the deck boats, the inboards and other V drives that are out there, IOs, can produce large wakes depending on how they're driven, at what speed, and how they're loaded with humans. So to me, that's kind of sums up that part of it. The other two, and these are actually, to me, were more compelling. And the second way I looked at this was just, and I'll call it sort of a practical common sense perspective on it. But 3 points on that, and this was made by, I think, Daryl already, but a boat that may include a wake-enhancing device produces no greater wake than any other sport boat that's out there when the device is not being used. And it's always already been said that we have the ban in place for wake-enhancing devices, and that remains in place. So I think that's the point. And I can say that from my own perspective, from 4 years of sitting on my dock, and literally from the end of my dock, probably 20 to 30 feet from all the action, and actually probably a so-called wake boat produces likely less wake than other boats, and particularly the way some of them are driven and some of those are loaded. Second point on the practical and common sense is that 99% of the people out there, I believe, want to and will comply with reasonable rules and regulations. And sometimes we act as if, well, everybody's out to break the rules, everyone's out to harm people, and we know they're really not. And I think the majority of the people, and 99% is a round number, but I think do want to comply with reasonable rules and regulations that point towards the safety of our members. And then the last point here, and this was from the ODNR conference call that I had, is they clearly recommended that we focus on boating behavior and outcomes versus narrow type of boat distinctions. And I think I mentioned this at the boating workshop that we had, or the town hall, that uniquely both the attorney conference we had and the ODNR, which were separate, weighed in on that very same thing and had a very similar answer. They used different words, but both of them basically said focus on the activity and the outcomes, not on restricting choices. So that was compelling to me. And then the third thing that I want to bring up is the third leg here, and that's, I'm just going to call this, what are we missing and what else can we do? And I also want to call this, are we really missing the point here? And the point is, and it's been made by a couple, but I think the point here is excessive wake. And how do we manage excessive wake? It's been said by a couple people already, and we've got work to do on that. And we can do that. I think we can do that. And that's with respect to all boats for the purpose of safety and property protection, not just one kind of boat, all boats. Number two, I think Candlewood should go all in on an effort with boating safety, regulations, member education, and training of lake security. Think about it. What have we done in the last few years to tamp this down? What have we done in the last 2 years to try to educate on this? We've missed the boat. You know, we've said it, we've admitted it, we've missed the boat. So why not go all in with a campaign and say, guys, this is our lake. Let's join together. Everybody can get behind the idea that we don't want excessive wakes. Let's do something about it in a broad sense with training, education, marketing, all kinds of things we can think of to do, and we've got all winter to get it ready. Third, consider an effort with the special rules process with ODNR. That's something else we can do. Now, there's no guarantees on that. It's not easy. It's a high hurdle, but I'd be willing to help lead the charge, and I know there's people out there listening right now that will sign on for that as well. Let's think about that. Daryl, I know you have a passion for that as well. And then just lastly, let's try to come together on this. We've been, I hate to say it, I don't know if fighting's the right word, but there's been a lot of passion around this over the past few years. I know it's been in, it's been out, it's been in, it's been out, but in a way I think we've missed the point. We've missed the point that excessive wake is a broad issue for a lot of boats. We've got a small lake, our buoys are only 50 feet offshore, even in the wake zones. We've got to deal with it. But I don't think, in my personal opinion, I honestly don't think this is the big issue. The wake boat thing is not the big issue. I think it's excessive wake from all boats. It's boating safety. It's people not knowing the rules, not knowing how to drive, and those kinds of things. So I guess I would just implore all of us to shift our combined efforts to the broad issue at hand, and let's all come together around it. Let's all come together around it. And I think we can find common ground. I think we have common ground, and we can agree on the excessive wake thing as just that. So that's my, I guess that's my 2 cents on it, and I'll be quiet now. So anybody else?
Thank you, Greg. And I know on behalf of the boating group, and Daryl, keep me honest, he was part of it as well. We agree with that. Come together on the bigger issue is definitely the key.
If there's no more discussion, you want me to read the motion one more time? Does anybody? I'll do it. Okay, motion to remove the rule from the information handbook that states, quote, no new watercraft permits for boats with wake enhancing devices on Candlewood Lake, unquote, and to remove board policy pound 03.026.17 from March 27th, 2017 that states, quote, approved motion to prohibit the new registration of boats with wake enhancing devices on Candlewood Lake. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. The last motion, let me find it's on the last page. The last motion is motion to change powerboat maximum length to 21 feet as listed on the original title. And I'll just editorialize, I believe it's 20.5 feet now. Is that correct? I believe so.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Do I have a move? Daryl? Second? Chris? Discussion.
Yeah, the background on this is that this has been basically the max size at Candlewood Lake for as long as we could find, at least as everything we looked at. Over the time, the industry, boats, things change and evolve, right? The average length of boats have gotten considerably larger, right? However, that doesn't mean we have to get considerably larger at Candlewood Lake, because the one thing the boating group did is, we looked at the industry, everything out there, but we did it keeping Candlewood Lake, the uniqueness, if you will, of Candlewood Lake in mind. So while being mindful of the size of Candlewood Lake, it would not be prudent to dramatically increase, or considerably increase the size of powerboats. However, based on the research we did, and this was, sampling, we sampled 129, we looked up 11 different manufacturers, 129 boats. I have a spreadsheet, can share the details if anybody's interested. We concluded that the smallest increment change that you could make to that was 6 inches. So go from 20 feet, 6 inches to 21 feet. would allow a significant increase in the number of boat options available to Candlewood Lake membership. So it took it from, based on the sampling we did, at 20 feet 6 inches, 29% of the boats we reviewed were eligible. And if we just move that again at the nominal smallest increment possible of 6 inches to 21 feet, that moves from 29% of the boats surveyed to 40% would be an option for Candlewood Lake members. We did not feel that 6 inches, when you look at the weight, when you look at anything else that would cause any issues, we didn't feel that it made any significant change. Therefore, recommending the 6 inch increase.
Discussion? Other discussion?
Yeah, my only comment there is if someone just bought a boat 6 months ago, now you've just kind of screwed them over on the deal because now you can buy a 21 footer. And you always have 21 foot 5 inches. Where do you draw the line? I just think the 20 foot 6 has been a comfortable figure. We ought to leave it that. Just my opinion.
Right. Yeah, and like you said, it's always been that. So as everything else has changed and the industry has changed, it's resulted in less options and less choices for Candlewood Lake membership. Therefore, you're right. There's always going to be a line you got to draw somewhere. So we feel, this hasn't been looked at in a long time. So now that we're looking at it, we feel it's time to put a stake in the ground, move the line, very nominally, but move the line.
Yeah, and it wasn't intended to creep, Ned. Like some people, some members expressed concern. Hey, this year it's 21, next year it's 22. It was not intended to creep. Chris did a phenomenal job of explaining. It was the largest bang for the buck. So we went from 23% to 40%. We're looking at giving our members options, and that was boats across the board. Those were fishing boats, deck boats, runabouts, all variants of types of boats. So it wasn't just like sport boats per se. It was kind of across the board, like Ranger and things like that. And when you go up even like the 21.6, the percentage, the payback, we'll call it, the return on investment or the benefit to cost, you only get like another 5 or 6% of boats. And so it's a very diminishing return once you exceed the 21 feet. So that's why the work group said, here today, 21 feet, we've got a 17% increase, which is extraordinary for only 6 inches. And that's why we said, let's park it at 21.
I'm going to take the other side of this one as well. Again, I think our lake is very unique, size and shape, where the buoys are off the shore. And in this particular case, I know it sounds harmless, it sounds incremental, but when you take a boat even 6 inches, it's more bottom hull area. It's potentially, it's more displacement, it's a little more weight, and based on the manufacturer, it might be a little more horsepower, which equals a little more speed, etc. And I guess, again, I know it sounds incremental, but I look at our lake and I go, how much margin for error do we have? And I think we have very little margin for error with respect to high-speed boating and those kinds of things. And I just think on this particular one, I'm on Ned's side of the fence on this one. Why push the envelope on this one? I do see a lot of boats out there, be it was mentioned, V drives and deck boats and all kinds of boats, fishing boats, and I know there's more choice if you go up a half a foot, but there seems like there's plenty of choice now. But that's my view on it. Why push the envelope? We've really got to protect our safety situation in our lake, and we've got to watch the creep, I think. So that's my view on it. So. Anybody else? I'll read the motion. Motion to change powerboat maximum length to 21 feet as listed on the original title. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Aye. Let me get a hand count on that. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. 5 to 4, yes, 5 to 4. Okay, other topics for discussion, any other new business?
This really relates to the fact that we just amended the boating regulations. I'd like to propose that we amend the newly adopted boating regulations so that what are presently several items in Section 7 become additional items in Section 4. So what I would propose is to make 7.10 to become 4.5 and 7.1 to become 4.6, 7.2 to become 4.7, 7.3 to become 4.8, and 7.9 to become 4.9. Because of the heading, it would be possible for people to interpret the regulations that you're only limiting this to a discussion of skiing, wakeboarding, tubing, etc., when in fact those are general regulations, and I think they ought to be under Lake General. And purposely put the issue of 7.10 as first. I'd really like to see that be the first one rather than 4.5, but for convenience, I'll just leave it as 4.5. That's my motion. Takes a second for discussion if anybody wants to discuss.
Okay, good. So can I
motion
just
and a second.
ask you to repeat it again slower?
Basically, what
Mike. 7.1.
I'm proposing to move 7.10 to become 4.5, 7.1 to be 4.6, 7.2 to be 4.7, 7.3 to be 4.8, and 7.9 to be 4.9. I interpret all those as to be Lake General rather than anything related to skiing or specifically restricted to skiing, etc.
And I'll say that's fine, or we can change headings. I'll give you the reason why it's structured as it's structured, so you have an understanding. It was based on where the rules were harvested like all the voting rules were segmented in different documents, and so that's why they ended up like they did. I'm happy to restructure it to your point, Kevin, and one that reads better, because that is our intent, right? Yep. We want it to read better and read smoother. So that's, to be honest and straightforward, it's inconsequential to me, and I appreciate your attention to detail, and so I'm not opposed to it. It's just a matter of copying and pasting now, because it's all in one document versus going from document A to document B to document C.
Well, and you did clarify earlier when I asked the question, but I think it's still very vague to have 7.10 listed under skiing and tubing, etc., because it implies that you're only talking about those, when in fact we have to abide by all Ohio DNR rules.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fair.
So let's just take them one by one. So I'll help everybody out here, because I tend to agree with you, Kevin, here. So 7.10 is anything not specifically covered in this document is governed by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources boating laws. Would agree that's not specifically a skiing, wakeboarding, tubing, and kneeboarding issue. So you're saying that to come 4.5, correct? Okay, and then these other ones are currently under skiing, wakeboarding, tubing, and kneeboarding, and he's saying move these under to Lake General. So 7.1 says all boat operators must be educated on the rules and regulations of Candlewood Lake. Security will give each person a copy of the rules and have them sign a document that they read and understand the rules and take responsibility for them. I agree that's not specific. That's a Lake General, not specifically to doing any of those activities. 7.2 is all boats must travel counterclockwise around the lake. It is not permitted to cut across the lake if doing so would in any way interfere with oncoming traffic. Agree, that's a Lake General. 7.3, human-powered craft may travel in either direction in no-wake zones at any time. This does not include sailboats. Agree, that's a Lake General. And 7.4, skiing, tubing permitted in the... wait, were you recommending 7.4? Because this one is specific to... Yeah, so 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, you're not touching 7, 4, right? I agree. So 7, 9, 7, 10, 7, 1, 2, and 3, moving to Lake General. Is what you're saying, right? Did I get that right? 7, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I agree with that. I agree with your motion.
Any other discussion? All right. Do I need to read it again, or I think we've kind of covered it, right? Everybody good? Okay. Okay. All right. So we have a first and a move and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Any other business before we go to member participation? Okay, let's see what we have. Chris, I don't know if you have anything that mine kind of stopped, but let me look at it.
Did we have any? Did anybody see anything come in when we were deliberating?
I was watching and I did not. That's what
Okay. Hopefully our internet's working.
I did during the committee meetings.
Right.
Janet Heaton question. This is from earlier, though. This is why I'm a little concerned. Unit 9, Lot 90, regarding the fee and fine proposed by the Bylaws Committee. If passed, where would these be documented to assure everyone is aware they exist? Now the Bylaws Committee, the fees, we didn't, we ended up tabling all those, but those would be, if they were acted upon or when they were acted upon, those would be changed in the, all of our books, correct? Yeah, they're CLOs. So that's the answer to that, but they've been tabled. So do you have anything else, Chris?
Yeah, I got him here. Frank Lafrey, 10-182. Watching the last few meetings, it seems that we spend just a comment. Watching the last few meetings, it seems we spend a fair amount of time discussing bylaws that already materially exist. Feels more like an enforcement issue. Understood. Deb Dupika, Unit 9, Lot 281. What exact statement, Jonathan, do you say we must have? Clarify so we don't keep going back and forth and wasting time. I think that was, I don't know what that one was on. Okay, maybe, yeah. And we're not sure exactly what that was on, Deb. Janet Heenan, where will the fine be documented? CLOs and the CLOs. Ben Perzanowski, Unit 10-190, about the 1-year experience, should we not be more concerned about why 5 board members choose to resign in such a short time frame? Comment?
We didn't have 5 resign, actually. Right.
They couldn't hear Daryl.
All right, I should mic up. It was 2 in addition to the 3 that were elected. That's what I meant by the five board member transition.
Got it. Yep. 2 resigned. Yep. Not 5. Okay. Mary.
3. Well, there was 3 resignations. 1 before the election, 2 after.
Got it.
I apologize.
Okay. Mary D'Amico. I think this was when we were discussing the signs and the cameras. Put up a sign that they are on camera around the gates, maybe. Smile, you're on camera. Kind of like that.
I think they're actually
put it right on the gate, right on the gates.
I think they're actually looking at that plus the fine, the actual fine plus, and we're watching kind of thing. So
yep.
Good idea.
Martha Gassman, this should be a vote of the community. So I address that from my perspective. If anybody else has a comment, Cheryl Buchanan agree. Bill Menendez, regarding wake enhancing devices, how will you measure the potential damage to the shoreline over time, and who will be liable for repairs? So as far as wake enhancing devices go, there's no change to those. The rule still exists that they're not permitted and not recommended. No change there. From Ben Perzanowski, wake size aside, a bigger issue is how the speedboats are operated and the lack of security for the disregard of our pontoons, boards, or canoes, let alone our shoreline. Comment. Steve English, lake is not getting any bigger. Comment. Sarah Skelton, the board really should do roll call votes. Comment.
What's that?
Great point, Sarah. In light of the not every single person being mic'd up, yes, we should consider that in the future board, like as far as doing roll call votes since we're on TV versus having an audience in the room.
We can look at that.
That's all membership participation at this point.
That it? Okay. All right. Anything else to come before us? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is that Chris? Second? Kevin? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay. Adjourned at 9:27. Thank you all.